Welcome back to Simple Truth. I just got reminded by our executive producer extraordinaire that I just did verse 48, the last one. And so now I have two verse 48s. I love it. I love the fact that I can do 48 and you can get double the pleasure, double of the encouragement, double of the challenge. I grew up under the whole double mint gum thing where you got double of everything, right? And you got twins, right? And all that kind of stuff. So I'm excited about double. So I'm going to tell my executive producer that I'm really good with my show. That's what we're doing. So we're going on. We're in 1 Samuel chapter 18, right? And we're looking at verse 48, 49, right? Of this whole thing. So in 49 says the following, right? David, right, put his hand in his bag, took out a stone, slung it, and struck the Philistine on his forehead, right? Does that make sense, right? That David, right, looked at this whole thing. He ran quickly to the battle, ran quickly, right, to the front line, got ready for the bag. But here's what he did. He had already prepared, right, his bag with what he was going to need it. He went with what he had. He didn't get halfway towards the giant and go, oh man, I got the wrong tools. I got the wrong thing, right? Instead, right, he got towards Goliath, reached into his bag where the things that he was going to need are already there. Do you know that God has for you all the things that you already need to win the battle? He's already prepped you for it. He told David later on in life, if you needed anything more, I would give it to you, right? You are prepared for the battle that God's going to put in front of you. You don't need more. You don't need more things. So he reaches into his bag and pulls out what he has for the battle. And it's a stone. And again, David's already consecrated this whole thing. David's already given all of this over to God. So these stones are already consecrated for the use of God. He puts his hand in, grabs it, puts it in a sling, and does what he's done 100 times before, if not more. And guess what? Then it's up to God. I think part of the reason that we prepare, part of the reason that we practice, part of the reason that we do these things is so that we're going to just do that which we've done 100 times before. Maybe it's the first time, but we do what we can do. We get it ready. We let it go. And then it's in God's hands. We do that with our words. We do that with our actions, right? We do that with all of our stuff. Right? We give it to God and then let him do with it. So he primed us. We go to a meeting, we use the words that he's given us, and then we just let it go. And then it's up to God. God has to do, right, what only he can do with it. Right? And again, that's the important part, because I always want it to be my words. I'm talking to you right now, and I want these words to get through to you, and I want it to be something about it's not what I've said. It's what God does with it. I was at a funeral yesterday. I said some things about my favorite uncle who passed away, right? And at the end of it, a couple people have commented like, hey, what you said really stuck with me, really resonated with me, right? That's great, right? I was just talking about my uncle, trying to use the words that God gave me, and then God did something with that. It happened with the other people who spoke. My cousin, one of my cousins got up, she spoke, and it was fascinating, and it was super great. It was super great object lesson, right? I learned from it, right? But we said God gave you something to say, and then he does something with it. In this case, guess what? He kicks the enemy's butt with it, right? He knocks it. The stone goes up in the air, lands right on the forehead, right where it's supposed to with the enemy. Right? And then what happens? What happens? The enemy falls down. Do you know that God has prepped you with the exact right things? So you've got physical problems. You got mental, emotional, social, relational. Those are the same thing, right? You've got spiritual problems. And God's given you everything you need in your little bag. You reach in, right? And you throw it at the enemy. He's given you the right verses. He's given you the right things to say. You let it go, and then you let the enemy do something that the enemy is going to do. He just keeps running forward. God deals with him, and he falls before you. It's what God promises is going to happen. right? The enemy is going to fall before you. Now, here's the deal. That might not be 35 steps away. That might be 1 step away. He might take care of the enemy and allow the enemy to actually grab you up, right? Pick you up. He might let the enemy squeeze on you a little bit. He might let the enemy beat you up a little bit. But what God promises that at the end of the day, the enemy is going to fall flat down, right? On his head, not because of what you did, but because of what God did through your obedience. You want to kill the giants in your life? Use what God has given you to use. Quit thinking you have to go find somebody else's tools, somebody else's stuff. Use what God's given you. And then, right, let God do it. You can keep beating people up with your words. You can keep beating people up with your actions. But you know what I found? Sometimes one little sentence does the work of hours worth of talking. I don't always apply that, but it works. Sometimes one little sentence cuts through all the things, knocks the enemy on his butt, because we've already been prepared by God, given all that we need by God. Hey, I'm going to leave it right there, right? Grab your sling today. Put what God has asked you to put in it. Throw it at the enemy and watch what God does with it. We're going to finish up this story, right? We're going to finish up the David and Goliath saga next time. Simple truth. See you then.